What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. This week, gonna do an episode of Tommy's Tips. We've been talking about it a lot at a lot of tables, and I'd like to bring it to the world at large, the concept of failing forward. We're borrowing the term from the business bros because it's a thing that we can employ in our tabletop role-playing games to have a better time not murder characters at the beginning of their career and in general have more fun. So, very useful thing, right? Right. If you're liking what you're seeing, remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell, stay caught up on all your stuff. For now, let's dive in. Okay, so before we get down to the meat and potatoes, let us first discuss the term failing forward. To do this is to embrace failure as necessary stepping stones for future successes. Each failure is a step closer, using lessons learned, applying them to future endeavors, to an ultimate success. In the TTRPG space, I was first exposed to this, I think before I was ready to hear it, or really was thinking about it, TBH, in an RPG that I wish I got a chance to run more, honestly, called Open Legend. It's literally baked into their mechanics. If you're making rolls, one of my favorite mechanics of it is failure, but the story progresses. A lot of times, and literally on their website, that is just, that thing that you wanted to happen didn't happen, and now a worse thing in combat happens, but that can and should apply in the broader narrative scope when we're showing up to play tabletop role-playing games. Now, don't get me wrong, if yours is the table where everyone is showing up to go through a mega dungeon and crawl and throw dice and have like mechanical discussions about how different feat interactions work, that's totally fine, and I'm very here for it. And if yours is a table where, that sucks, you died, here's your next character sheet, then like, what can I say? Blood for the blood god. Right? It is what it is. But a lot of times, particularly running Pathfinder adventure paths, you're so incentivized to pick something at level 1 that will get its ultimate payoff by the end of that campaign, whether it be the end of book 3 or the end of book 6, when we're meeting big bad evil people at the very beginning and then you die to a bad roll on a trap or some such. That payoff of, no, you're wrong, I'm right, pushes bad guy off bridge or whatever it happens to be. I'm biased on this one, but when you spend money on character art and several hours building a thing, making a backstory for a thing, getting very invested in a thing, and then you get crit for max damage and you're just gone in a split second, that sucks, you know? You see a lot of examples of this from a narrative standpoint throughout the wide world of cinema. Assuming that the GM is an omnipotent being in the world, the PCs are the protagonists and the antagonists are the BBEGs and so forth. For example, off the top of my head, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. If we assume the main cast is the party and Luke has had to go off very far away to work on, say, their prestige class or however you want to frame it, but then leaves a very important thing for the development of his character early because he knows everybody else is in danger, and the GM, through, in this case, Yoda and Obi-Wan, I suppose, very clearly say, hey, don't do this, you're gonna get in over your head and get hurt, and then what happens? Right, that very iconic I am your father scene in which Luke is dismembered, chooses to end his life rather than join the dark side, throws himself down into a shaft and damn near to the surface of the planet while Han is frozen in carbonite and off to Tatooine he goes. This could very, very, very easily have shaken out to a TPK. Right? So a lot of fall damage if you're falling from a city in the clouds. Instead, all of these things, through reaching out through the Force and like, hey, Leia, come pick me up. Oh God, I'm going to fall to my death. To then set up a lot of the major events of Return of the Jedi, right? All of the good that happens in that movie cannot feel as good without the heroes, aka the party, having failed to then have that opportunity to go forward. Similar things happen throughout the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. Everything from Boromir's player gets very salty that he wasn't given the MacGuffin item, tries to murder the party, is asked to leave and then killed, but oops, somewhere in the shakeout, 2 other players were captured. 2 other players decided, let's go do our own thing. Wait a minute, hold on. That thing that we really need to happen for the plot is going to fail unless we do something right now. What do? Get everybody and the stuff together. We're gonna just attack to make a distraction. So on and so forth. We could pull a million of these out. What does it look like at the table, though? One thing I've never considered doing, but in doing research for this video, I landed on, in the smaller scale, things like skill checks, to speak specifically in Pathfinder terms, can turn 30 minutes of, I'm gonna roll again, I can definitely succeed on this, and then the party continues to roll single digits on their d20s ad nauseum. It takes a shitload of time that people probably didn't want to spend trying to find a door or trying to pick a lock. God, I'm having Outlaws of Alkenstar flashbacks. Instead, giving the party that thing that they need in order to succeed, but at a greater cost. Perhaps it takes you so long to find a thing that other elements of the plot move forward and, oh god, we just couldn't get that thing we needed in time. Or complications mechanically, like damage or debuffs for other people, or some nebulous, you can't see this right now thing being raised later in return for it. Saves folks a lot of time, and I think a lot of people will be very happy if I do that in my games, so I'm gonna start doing that. But in the bigger sense, things along the lines of, say, character death can have very similar effects. In this case, I will cite specific examples from my own time running games. First and foremost, Kingmaker. This is on the channel, you can definitely find it. There have been some people who've been like, hey, where'd that go? Let's use this video as a time to talk about the channel. I decided to not air every single actual play of games I'm running, because I can't make very high quality ones like other people can, and the people who are coming to me aren't paying to be actors for me, right? Felt weird. But during the end of Book 3 fight versus a very upset Lich and his horde of enemies, the nation state's king was killed. Mere sessions before, whilst going through that angry Lich's house, trying to, find him and stop him from menacing their state that they're trying to build, in order to open a door, a blood offering to the Horseman of Death Sharon had to happen. This is an example of what we just talked about, succeeding at a cost. Now the Horseman of Death knows who you are. And the cost of, sure, I'll bring you back on a couple conditions. This was the point where I decided, well, these players have really invested in, why not? Let's break out the templates and jump cut to the king now being a half-fiend and brought back to serve the Horseman of Death, ultimately break that. They've fought Charon twice now, haven't killed him. There's going to be another fight. It's added this whole element to the narrative that I didn't have a chance to play with, but now I do, because I chose to allow this to happen rather than like, GG, Cato Sicarius. What you got next? Another considerably lower level example, I started running Skull and Shackles not too terribly long ago. I don't know if you know this if you played Skull and Shackles, but the first book's real bad. It's worth its own video. Everyone decided they hated that, so consequently, I am homebrewing all of levels 1 through 5. I've given 6 people a ship and said 3, 2, 1, go. I'm going to be intentionally a little vague here so as not to just vomit spoilers / future plans at the party who may be watching this. I see you, all of you, and thank you for your support. Hi. But the shortest version is, whilst traveling around, they encountered a party of several Idaro who ambushed them. As the guy who made the encounter, it was meant to serve as a combination. Let's see how we work underwater when we're fighting, and let's establish that this part of the world is dangerous and people are going to want to try to hurt you. Unfortunately, when all the things under my control are rolling 18s and all the things under the player's control are rolling 5s, it shakes out to a pretty bad time. A time in which If I wanted to kill half the party, could I have? Yeah, by all means. But we don't want to do that because we're here to tell a story and I'm not trying to cut anybody off that early on. So instead, when it becomes blatantly obvious, when it became very obvious the odds were in the opponent's favor, instead of continuing to murder the party, what do? They start stealing treasure chests on the party's ship to swim away with them. This both serves to establish a very early rival faction who has now robbed you of a lot of your stuff, and that's not great, and we gotta go find them and beat them up and take their stuff and our stuff. And it also gives a group of players experience fighting under different conditions, so next time they know how to approach it better. And also they won the encounter and leveled up, so everyone's happy. As a final bit before I sign off though, it doesn't exist in the second edition adventures, which is a little surprising and kind of disappointing to me as I look through Strength of Thousands to see if the trend had continued. In all of the first edition adventure paths, in the very back of book 6 of that given adventure path, there's a section for what happens if the party fails. All of them are bad. All of them range in horrible, terrible madness, from that very terrible wizard returns to the material plane and reestablishes their kingdom, and lots of people die, to the borders of the world wounds stretch evermore, and lots of people die. We're sensing a trend here, right? But in every case, there's always that option to now something has to happen, usually with, heroic beings that might or might not have survived previous events, depending on y'all's group and how you shake it out, to go back into it. Because after all, in life, it is an unfortunate truth that sometimes things aren't going to go the way we want, and there's literally nothing we can do about it. Why not, leave that in real life and let the failures of the tabletop carry us on forward? But that is all the time I have for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And as always, we'll see you next time.